Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Oyster Radio. So today, we need to talk about the best cards that it looks like are going to be cut from Evoving Skies. Now, Evoving Skies is going to be coming out fairly soon, next month as it happens. And essentially, Evoving Skies is made up of 3 Japanese sets. We have the double set, which is Sword and Shield 7, that being Blue Sky Stream and Skyscraping Perfect. And we've got EV Heroes, which was Sword and Shield 6A. Remember, the Evolving Skies is our Sword and Shield 7, so it's made up of Japan's Sword and Shield 7 and Japan's Sword and Shield 6A. Now, as a side note before we get going here, remember that Japan's Sword and Shield 8 is not a double set, which means that it is going to be a smaller set when it comes out over here, and it doesn't actually look like there is a Sword and Shield 7A. There is an 8A, which is going to be Celebrations, but there is no Sword and Shield 7A. What that means is Japan, instead of giving us a double set and a mini set, are giving us a single set. Rather than 140 cards plus 70, they're giving us 100 plus 0. What that means is that our Sword and Shield 8 Fusion Arts, or whatever it ends up being called, is looking like it is going to be a much, much smaller set than normal, which kind of answers our question. Because we are wondering how we're going to get all of those cards that were cut from Chilling Reign, and we're wondering how we're going to get all those cards that are going to be cut from Evolving Skies. I cannot tell you for certain, I don't know, but it is highly, highly likely that all these cards that are cut from both of those sets will be put into Sword and Shield 8, and that will essentially catch us up with Japan. The other thing that does need to be stated right off the bat here, we do not have confirmation of the set list. What we do have are set lists. I mean, a lot of people are sharing these around at this stage. I've been sent it a lot. I've seen it everywhere. We do not have confirmation of the set list. This is subject to change. Okay. So with all of that now said and out the way, what's being cut? Well, the good news is there is nothing absolutely vital being cut. There are no cards being cut which should absolutely fill you with dread. However, it doesn't look like we're getting Shauna. And we should be getting Shauna. Now, Shauna is a weird one, because Shauna wasn't actually in Sword and Shield 7 over in Japan. Shauna was in the family set. That is the Learn to Play thing, what came over as a Battle Academy over here. But then the Full Art and the Rainbow Rare Shauna were included in Sword and Shield 7, which should be Evolving Skies over here. Actually, scrap that. My apologies. It was actually in Sword and Shield 7 as well as the family set, so we're cool. And Shauna's kind of a big deal, honestly, because Shauna's a shuffle, draw 5. Now, don't get me wrong. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 5 cards. That's not exactly absolutely stunning. We have seen better. In fact, until recently, we had Cynthia, and Cynthia was better. But we don't have Cynthia right now. The best shuffle draw we have is Marnie. Now, Marnie will get you 5 cards, but it will also give your opponent a new hand of 4 cards, which a lot of the time is a good thing. But then again, a lot of the time, it's not a good thing. Because your opponent might have a bad hand or a small hand or whatever, and you really don't actually want to give your opponent a new hand. So Shaun is one of those cards that is going to see a bunch of play. It is, as far as I'm concerned, by far the biggest loss from the set. It's a new shuffle draw support, and it was going to see a bunch of play. The thing that makes me really sad that it's gone and been removed from the set is Let's Roll. Now, there are a bunch of Pokemon that have Let's Roll. It's a new archetype which is coming around, which honestly makes me very happy indeed. Now, it actually started over in EV Heroes with Marill, and Marill's got the attack, Let's Roll, that for 2 colorless energy does 20 damage for each of your bench Pokemon that have Let's Roll. So you fill up your bench and you do 100 damage for a double colorless energy. That's not too bad. And we've seen this attack on other Pokemon like Jigglypuff that'll hit your Psychic weakness, and Sandshrew that will hit your Fighting weakness. Yes, that does mean potentially 3 different weaknesses being hit here. That is a very good thing. But it all comes to a head when you bring in Blissey. Blissey makes this a way, way better deck than it would otherwise be. You know, 100 damage for 2 energy is nice, and we're talking basic Pokemon here, so we can get them rolling very early. But let's not pretend that 100 damage for 2 energy is going to carry you through the entire game all the time. Some games it will, obviously, but some games we are going to need a little bit more. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Blissey comes in so gosh darn nicely. Because as much as having Let's Roll, but for 3 energy, so far worse, you've got an ability all-rounder that prevents all damage done by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon VMAX to any Pokemon that have Let's Roll. So Blissey doesn't protect itself, I mean obviously it does, but it doesn't just protect itself, it protects all of your Pokemon with Let's Roll. And we are in a very VMAX heavy format at the moment. Both Ice Rider and Shadow Rider Calyrex are proving to be just top tier decks. We are in a format where we're seeing just an awful lot of VMAXs just being brilliant. And it looks like this is going to carry on for a while. So now you're getting immunity to all of those, and you've still got that super consistent early game pressure going on, but now you've got the immunity with Blissey as well. And this makes me genuinely sad. I don't know if this is going to be a particularly good deck. But you're very efficient. You can be doing really well. If you go second on turn 1, you can be hitting 100 damage pretty easily. You're hitting a bunch of different weaknesses, which is pretty good. And you've got immunity to VMAXs. Cannot be the only person that thinks this is pretty gosh darn cool. It looks like we're going to have to wait a little while. Like I've said, I believe pretty strongly that by the time we get to Sword and Shield 8, this is all going to be a moot point anyway. But it's not for the time being, and that's a little bit sad. Now, the other losses I don't think are as high, but one which I could end up really getting excited about, one which I think could end up being really quite good, is Cloyster. Now, Cloyster is a Stage 1 Rapid Strike Pokemon, and the Rapid Strike is extremely important here. Now, the ability says you take 30 less damage from attacks. That's fine. It's not the reason we're excited about the card. But for 1 water, 1 colorless energy, you do 60 damage, plus 30 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. 60 to the active, 30 to each of 2 bench. The thing is, when we start bringing in Rapid Strike tricks, this gets a whole heap more exciting. Because that water and colorless energy can be paid with a Rapid Strike energy. Single energy attachment, and you're off. Then let's not forget we've got Persimmon, which means you will do an extra 30 damage to the bench as long as you attack GX and V Pokemon. Which, incidentally, is exactly the same as Telescopic Sight, although that'll work on non-Rapid Strike Pokemon, which you can combine with it. So now we end up with a single energy, and you're doing 60 damage to the active, and 90 to 2 bench Pokemon, GX or V. Bearing in mind something like a Crobat or a Kricketune, which are widely played Pokemon, will be 2-hit KO'd here. So you can kind of be doing 60 to the active, while 2-hit KOing 2 Kricketune/Crobat on the bench. This, I don't think, is the next great deck all by itself. I don't think it's going to rule the format alone. But certainly in terms of in a Rapid Strike deck, you know, if you're already playing stuff like Persimmon and Rapid Strike Energy, which you will a lot of the time, yes. Absolutely yes. Now, Toxtricity is one that I could see some people having a little bit of a play with, one that could end up being kind of fun. This is another Stage 1 Pokemon, but for just 2 energy, you deal 70 damage, and you have the option of taking 70 damage to do paralysis. Essentially, automatic paralysis if you take 70 damage. Now, admittedly, you can only do this twice and then you're knocked out, but heal, retreat, use stuff like Flaffy to accelerate energy. This is a kind of thing, automatic paralysis is not to be slept on. And maybe we're all playing too many switching cards at the moment, and maybe it's never going to actually work. I don't know. It's one of those things, until we start testing it, we're never going to know for sure. But it's a stage 1 Pokemon that for 2 energy can get automatic paralysis and has really good energy acceleration. This seems like the kind of thing that could be a really good tech in decks like Flaffy, or really any lightning deck. It's the kind of thing I think we should be thinking about. It's not necessarily a deck on its own, though you could test it that way. A lot of the time, a single turn, just buying 1 turn, is enough to win the game. So all you need to do here is buy yourself that turn with paralysis, and then come back next turn and win the game. It is exactly the kind of thing I could see people having a little bit of a play with. Now, Ninetales is a rather unexciting Pokemon, but it's actually a super useful Pokemon. You see, the only reason we're playing it here is because it's got an ability that reduces the retreat cost of any Pokemon with fire energy attached by 2 colorless energy, which will make an awful lot of your relevant fire Pokemon have free retreat. And I know it's a stage 1 Pokemon that sits on the bench to give you free retreat, yay, but actually, I could totally get on board with this. Something like Victini V Max, which is still a deck I'm incredibly fond of, retreat cost of 2. So now all of a sudden you've got free retreat. So you can retreat to the bench, send up a new Victini, and go from there. Of course, this doesn't need to be in a fire deck. Any deck playing Aurora Energy, for instance, will be able to essentially use that to count as fire energy and give any of their Pokemon free retreat. It's the kind of Pokemon we've seen C play before. It basically means that you can have an air balloon on any of your Pokemon pretty gosh darned easily. It's not an exciting card. It's not going to be your main attacker. But if you just want to get a little bit of an advantage in terms of being able to get your Pokemon out the active far more easily, I'm sorry, but this actually becomes like a really good Pokemon. I know it's just not terribly exciting, and I am sorry. And the last Pokemon I want to just shout out here is Azumarill. Yeah, Azumarill. I like Azumarill. Azumarill's fun. Now, this is one, it's not for me, let's be clear. This is not a Pokemon for me. This is nothing that I'm ever going to play around with. It's not going to work for me. But what it does allow you to do is grab up to 3 Pokemon and supporter cards from your discard pile and put them into your hand. And this has got to be the kind of thing you're very excited about if you like playing weird control kind of decks. Because it means you can get your Pokemon back, it means you can get your supporters back, it means you can play those super annoying supporter cards every single turn. Something like a Team Yell Grunt, for instance, which can remove energy from your opponent's Pokemon. You can make sure you've got that to play every single turn. I don't know if this is going to work as a control archetype. I don't know if it's going to be as good as a lot of the control Pokemon we've had in the past. That remains to be seen. But I do know that if you are a control player, you don't always have a huge amount of options in terms of the Pokemon you use. And this gives you another option. This is something else that you can use, and I, for one, am all in favour of it. For the people that like control decks, for me personally, I ain't touching this for Barge Pole. This is not my kind of deck. But I want to know what you think. I want to know if there are any other cards that you don't think are going to be in Evolving Skies that you're going to miss. And I want to know if any of these cards you think are worthy of saying they are going to be missed. The good news is it does not look like there are really good cards that are being cut from Evolving Skies, other than the ones I've listed here. And these aren't game-breaking cards. These are cool cards that some people are going to miss, but they're not your game-breaking cards. Your main archetypes look like they are going to come through nicely. Of course, there is a question to be asked about Sword and Shield 8, and whether that is going to have an awful lot more filler than your average set, but that seems like a question for another day. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to know what you think about all of this, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.